false alert in the north that brought many to say, here's the right moment to hit Hezbollah before they hit us, to go into action. And my question to you, Captain Pon, perhaps this is the preview to a potential miscalculation that people were talking about, that the wrong step in the wrong moment because of misreading the situation could trigger a much greater chaos than the one that we're already experiencing.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't consider myself, a strategic military expert, but I think you're right. I mean, jumping into any kind of scenario that this is the right thing to do right now and attack or not is something that I find totally stupid, to be frank. This is some things that, the situation and the considerations are so complicated, so complex, that we must leave those kind of decisions to the leaders. And fortunately now, hopefully with this new cabinet, which is much more, in my opinion, normal than the previous ridiculous combination.
I think everyone's opinion.
Everybody's opinion. At least we have the trust that these people will take into considerations the risks, the opportunities. Everything is taken into account with a global, with a bigger picture, with the United States being involved, with all kind of situations. I don't think that anybody, and I watched some of those experts in the television panels, everybody saying, this is the moment to do this is the moment to do that. I think this is completely irrelevant and should not be the things that should be discussed in the public, because nobody, even those ex-generals or whoever, has the complete picture, complete considerations, and a lot of it, to be frank, is dependent on developments that are not known yet.
Right.
So we have to trust that the group of leaders that are under their watch, they were maybe unfortunate to get this kind of watch, but there is no other solution for us but to trust that they will take the responsible steps and do the right thing.
I agree with Guy. I mean, there are things that the leadership knows that people in the studios don't, even if they're very well connected and have sources and so forth. Up until today, there was very good reason to distrust the leadership. So the idea that we should put ourselves in their hands and not second guess them was a little unrealistic for most Israelis, because it was an abnormal leadership. From this point onward, the notion of trusting in the wisdom and the information of the people at the top becomes more plausible.
Back to the first day of the war, that's a day that will be talked about for decades, and also the criticism of the late response of the military once the surprise attack was already underway. But you are presenting a different picture when it comes to the involvement of the Air Force.
Yes, mainly the helicopters that were operationally expected to be able to stop this infiltration, but the situation that happened there is that those attack helicopters on alert that were ready in their bases and flew over in a relatively short time were informed or were alerted relatively late, and by the time they got to the front, 25 to 30 minutes of flight, the infiltration was so massive of those terrorists, and they dispersed all over the place, that it was not anymore a situation where an attack helicopter can shoot at the border when they cross and stop them. It became a situation that these helicopters had to chase hundreds of different small groups of terrorists. Now, they did that, and there are images and videos of many such attacks, but it could not be effective as it was supposed to be.
But what went wrong with the plan? In other words,
well,
should they have been closer, or what?
As far as the helicopter, well, it's a multi-layered failure. the fact that there was absolutely no intelligence that told us in advance is the first fault. But once they arrived and crossed the border, the fact that all these cameras, they managed very effectively to destroy them and then enter those bases, that meant that the lines of communication, normally the people that were supposed to coordinate the attack of those helicopters, were paralyzed, disappeared. So by the time the helicopters got to the place, they had nobody to talk to direct them to where they should be attacked. So some of those helicopter pilots were literally speaking on their cell phone with soldiers and people from the kibbutzim directing them, go to the left of this hill, go to the right. Now this is something that none of those pilots have ever prepared themselves for this kind of situation, for not enough alert time, and then no directions, no clear instructions, and the fact that they were that they successfully crossed with so many of them that were diverse. So this combined situation created a situation that those helicopters were not nearly as effective as they should have been.
There was a multi-level system-wide failure that had to do
before,
with...
during, after.
Yeah, and had to do also with so much of the army being deployed in the West Bank for a variety of reasons. The ignoring of the apparent intelligence warnings.
Yeah, and the guarding of the bases, the fact that they could so easily enter the bases after having crossed the border. It's a multi-layered failure, which is going to be examined, and people are going to pay for those people responsible. But again, and we talk about the pilots. You know, I am part of the organization of the ex-pilots that were participating in the demonstrations, etc. All of those pilots, including many of those that stopped their reserve duties, all of them reported to their bases. But of course, this could not cover for this initial failure that you were mentioning, that we're talking about.
And yet, your impression of this newly formed cabinet, Captain Pon?
Well, I think that it's under the circumstances, it's the best we could hope for. But to tell you that I am confident that these guys will lead us to the victory that they're talking about, unfortunately, I'm far from being sure of that. But I do know one thing, that right now, even though many of us feel that the blame is very clear on what led us to this situation, we have to hold back, we have to bite our lips and wait, because at this point in time, the most important thing is to keep united. But 1 hour after the fighting is over, people are going to have to give answers. And what we've seen after the 1973 war, Moti Ashkenazi, is peanuts in compared to what is going to happen here when this war is over.
Yeah, we're still far from there, but...
I agree with Guy.
And Biden was drawing a clear line, aligning Hamas on the wrong side of history, clear-cut. If we're going back, if we use the term Israel's 9/11, axis of evil.
Yes, but the same United States has put the Taliban on the other side of the line, and we've seen recently where the Americans are and where the Taliban is. So it's not enough to have the aspiration and the just way to say these people deserve to be wiped out of the earth. It's another thing to actually do it.
Make sure. Objectives of day 6, briefly, if you may, Captain Poran.
Well, I think that the first thing is that we need to get our military, for whatever action is going to be taken eventually, getting them as ready as possible, because we don't want another 2006 Lebanon 2 happening in Gaza now. And we already hear about a lot of the forces being mal-equipped and all these kind of things. So we first of all, we have to get them as ready as possible, one thing. This is the immediate need. And then I'm hoping that this cabinet and the military, the IDF, is going to put together calmly. You know, it's very, very extreme now, but as much as possible to do it in a serious and systematic and professional way, prepare those next steps. That's for the immediate future. Not, in other words, not jumping into any kind of adventure only to find out 2 days later that there is another disaster that is happening.